Well, hi there. Welcome to week 29 and the second book in The Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin, The Obelisk Gate. Um, there she is. Um, Again, this is a series that won 3 Hugos and one Nebula. All three books, the fifth season, The Obelisk Gate, and The Stone Sky won Hugo's, and the third book, The Stone Sky, also won a Nebula. Um, so it's a pretty well received series, and rightly so. Now, I don't really remember too much of what I said about the previous book, but what this book does is essentially just pick up from where the first book left off. Only the first book was told from the point of view all from the same character, but from three different points in her life. Um, and some of the narration is, some of the point of view is unusual in the sense that it's directed at them rather than them telling. It's like you. So that's unusual, but I get the feeling that there's definitely a reason for it. This book has a couple of different points of view that were not introduced in the first one. And all three timelines of the first book have now collapsed, and we're stuck entirely within the present moment. Um, okay, so the main character, who goes by the name of Essen at the moment, but also was Cyanite at one point and Demea at one point, in the first book. Uh, Essen is now living in this Strema, which is underground. And a certain amount of time has passed, and the fifth season is progressing. And so all the wildlife has begun to turn more hostile and more aggressive. These things called boil bugs, which are little bugs that boil water inside them. When they latch on you, they basically boil your body alive. And of course, eat you, because that's what they do. That's what most creatures have evolved to do, is to be carnivorous, particularly to be carnivorous, apparently, when they can catch them, to humans. We saw this in the first book with the Crow House, or whatever it was called. Now we see it in this book with these bugs. I don't think there are any other wildlife mentioned, but the season is starting to cover everything with ash, so there's not a lot of wildlife surviving anyway, at least at the place where they're at. So what we learn here is that those obelisks, okay, they can be used as a source of energy for orogeny, but we also discover that orogeny is only one kind of use of this kind of what might be called earth magic. But there's actually a deeper version of it, which is just called magic. And what this is made up of is silver threads that they can cess with the Sisypine uh, gland. Now, at what the main character begins to learn, is this other thing, this use of magic, that's actually the skill that she's got. Orogeny, or orogeny, the ability to manipulate the rocks and stuff, that is something that the old uh, oppressive government had um, controlled those people who had this magic ability. That's something they controlled them, limited them to. So that's sensing the origin of the where the rocks are kind of thing. That is a lower level. There's a higher level which is sensing this magic, and that's what the obelisks are all about. That's what the stone eaters are about. We learn a little more about what the stone eaters are here. And we also learn a little bit more about the Guardians are, because remember her old guardian, Shaffa, well, he's still around. Um, but he's about to die at one point, And he saves himself by making a deal with something. And it's very, very heavily implied, said even, that the Earth is alive here. And there's a war going on between different factions, and the different factions seem to be different factions of Stone Eaters. And some Stone Eaters are on one side, some Stone Eaters are on the other side. There are other sides going on. The official guardians from the Fulcrum are on one side, and whatever is now controlling Shafa after he almost had this death experience and now has um, given into whatever it is that is controlling him now, is on another side altogether. And he has set up a alternative kind of place for Oregons and Guardians down near the south, down near the Antarctica fulcrum. But he's not doing the fulcrum's business. He's not controlling Oregons for the reasons that they are. So he goes down and actually destroys the Antarctic Oregon with, and this is the important part, with Nessun. Remember the daughter that Essen is looking for? Well, she's alive, and she's extremely powerful. And she has the ability to assess not only Origin, but also to assess magic. And she knows how to connect to these obelisks as well. Okay, so the plot continues. The Castrimi uh, geode is dealing with things, and Alabaster uh, continues to instruct the main character, but he's not good at it. He doesn't know exactly how to teach this because he only has the tools that Fulcrum taught, and this is stuff that Fulcrum steered people away from. Fulcrum steered people away from, as we find out from both him and from Shafa. Yeah, Ika, the YKKA lady who runs Castrimi, she is a Organ or a Roga, but she is a feral. She never went to the Fulcrum. She never learned any discipline from them, and so her orogeny is very different, and it's actually more based on magic. And she can actually create a network of organs, which is something Essen learns to do, and from that she learns something very important. She learns how to open the Obelisk Gate. Now, what in the world's the Obelisk Gate? Well, there are 120 some odd um, obelisks around the world, and the Obelisk Gate makes use of all of them, or at least some of them, and sort of networks their power. And by networking their power in a grid, it uses the power of the whole Earth. And that's what she's able to do. And she uses it to get rid of an enemy that Castrimi has, which basically ensures the survival of their calm in a different way. But remember how Alabaster is turning to stone? Well, we don't get specific response to this, but it appears at the very end of the book, part of her arm has turned into stone. We will find out, I'm sure, in the third book how this works. We also get a suggestion, not a reality, but a suggestion that Alabaster may have turned into a Stone Eater after he died, because he does die in this book. So what's going on here? Well, the whole conceit seems to be that this planet used to have a moon. The planet's called Earth, but I don't know how it relates to what we call Earth yet. Maybe there's a relationship, maybe there isn't. But at some point, something that the original people who are messing with this origin did caused the moon to leave the Earth. And when the moon left, the Earth became unstable, and the plate tectonics began to go a little wild. And so that is why there are all of these volcanoes and eruptions and shakes and things like this. And this is why these seasons happen. And this is what these Oregons who apparently originally caused this problem also are now attempting to calm it. They're not trying to fix it now, just trying to calm it because apparently, at least according to the book, the way to fix it is to bring the moon back. Now, how do you do this? Well, the moon didn't just wander off and never come back. The moon went into a very wide elliptical orbit. So it needs to be pulled back into Earth's gravitational field. Now, I have a feeling that this silvery stuff that she's sensing everywhere is some relationship to whatever uh, gravity is in this universe or string theory or something like that. I keep feeling that even though this book was marketed as fantasy and lives in the fantasy section of Barnes and Noble and clearly has a lot of fantasy elements, that there's going to be a core grounding in some degree of science. I don't think it's going to be scientific realism. I don't think we're going to get to any hardcore science or anything like that. No hard science here. But I think that it is going to thread that line where what we're seeing here is magic, is mostly uh, technology that is misunderstood by people. I don't know for certain because there's this organ in these people's bodies called the cecipine or Sisipane, and I don't know that I don't think anything like that really exists. But we do know that the Guardians have a little piece of technology that is poked into the back of their Sesapine, and that gives them the abilities that they have, and also apparently makes them very long-lived. Okay, so the actual plot here is Nessun and her father eventually make it to this place that his father Jija had heard of, where Origins, or Ragas as he calls them, are, quote, cured. And that's what he wants for his daughter. He wants his daughter to be cured. We find out the reason for this is that he had an extremely traumatic experience as a child with a untrained Origin who almost killed him, killed his best friend and almost killed him by accident, but that's exactly why he's no fan of this because he thinks that they're completely uncontrollable and are basically evil. Nessun, meanwhile, uh, Shaffa is the one who's at this place, and Nessun is a very powerful Orient, and Shaffa figures out that her mother is Essen, and or as he knows her, Cyanide, and he wants to control her for some unknown reason. And he's raising and training Origins for his own purposes, which are not the same as the Fulcrums. Anyway, he is also not curing them, and so GJ gets upset and has a couple of altercations, and eventually Nessun is given no choice but to basically kill her father. But interestingly enough, she doesn't kill him using orogeny. She uses him killing magic. The difference? Orogeny, you kill somebody, they ice. Orogeny, magic, you kill somebody, they turn to stone. So she does this first to someone else, turns them to stone, and then turns her father to stone about 200 pages later. But the important thing here is this is not something that every Oregon can do. It is something that you need to tap into the power of the obelisk for. And tapping the power of the obelisk is something not everyone can do because it's dangerous. It can kill you. It's too much power. So in that thread, she and Shaffa both begin to discover that she's got an incredible amount of power. She also starts talking with a stone eater that she calls Steel, and Steel shows her how to cure Shaffa from being a guardian. But if she cures him from being a guardian, he takes away all of his guardian power, and then he will grow old and die, and he won't have any of the powers that he has. So he doesn't want that to happen. Why would she want to do this? Well, she can sense that Shappa is constantly in pain from this metal thing in his Cecipine. Because remember, he hadn't made that deal when he almost died. He made a deal with something, and he's ignoring what that metal thing wants him to do, but he's using those powers still, so it's causing him pain. And he can relieve the pain by taking whatever the Cecipine power is from somebody by touching the back of their neck and absorbing their Cecipine power. And he does this to a still, someone who's not an Origin, it kills them. He does it to an Origin, it can also kill them if he does it long enough. But if he doesn't do it long enough, all it does is weaken them, and then they have to recuperate their Cecipine abilities. So Nessun is able to calm him both by him sometimes tapping her Cecipine power, and sometimes she's able to do it using her magic abilities. Okay, so that's what's going on in that thread. So Shaffa's got some sort of goal, and he seems to be on one side of this conflict between different Stone Eaters, and Castrima and Essen seem to be on the other side. It's hard to be certain, but that seems to be what's going on. Is we have two different clearly delineated sides here going on, and both of them apparently want to capture the Earth, capture the Moon, and bring it back, but apparently for very different reasons. So, in the third book, The Stone Sky, I can only assume we are going to see an attempt to capture the moon. Probably we're going to see the moon get captured. I'm not really sure, but probably it's going to happen. And I suspect it's going to happen with some degree of cooperation with the two sides. I don't know how well that summary went. It was kind of chaotic and all over the place, but this is a very good book. It picks up where the other book left off. I think this is actually a stronger book in some respects than the first book. Although I think the first book is very necessary for setting up an understanding of this universe. I think that this one has gotten deeper into the lore and deeper into to the reality of what this place is like. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to the third book. We have Vineland first, but Vineland is a relatively short Pynchon novel, so I'll be the Stone Sky next week. And you guys have a good week. I'll talk to you later.